I just want to talk about the Anthony Carmelo and Metcalf situation real quick. So first of all, I want to say that I believe that a race war is trying to be pushed. Um, it's kind of interesting considering, the cult that existed back in the day that was saying, "Oh, one day there's gonna be a race war." The situation overall is very sad, right? Because at the end of the day, it's two kids. This did not need to happen. First things first, if boundaries had been respected. It is my interpretation that Metcalf was from a different school. You had Anthony in the tent already, sitting down. Metcalf approached him. Uh, they had a verbal confrontation in which Anthony was essentially like, "You will have to move me," in which Metcalf pushed him, right? Um, so he shouldn't have pushed him. He should have just respected his wishes, but that's an ego thing. That is a human nature thing. That's an alpha thing, right? You're going to challenge me, so I'm going to challenge you. I'm going to call your bluff. Only he wasn't bluffing, right? Um, Self defense would have been a fight, a physical fight, right? He pushed him, you react with a fist, right? Um, Not poking, whatever you want to call it. But what I want to focus on is the fact that he had a, we'll say, minimum 3-inch knife in his backpack. This was a school track meet. Why would you have that in your backpack for a track meet? What are you gonna need a 3-inch knife at school when it's an athletic competition? Um, so do I think that it escalated in an unnecessary fashion? Yes. Although I would not have faulted him if it was a normal physical altercation. If he had just swung at him and it had ended up in a fist fight, no, then nobody would have been unalived. But the scary part is that some people are like almost cheering for this unaliving. Support is that historically and even modernly that YT people are attacking BLK people, right? If you look at what happened with well, I mean, technically it's not even really YT, right? Because it was like an Asian man, I believe, who pew pewed the 14-year-old, right? But then there's been other things where with the kid who's disappeared and was found burnt. But there is a tribalism conflict happening right now, and I think it's only going to get worse. My fear is that it's going to go in reverse. Over time, through what I what I call reverse racism. I know some people don't believe in that, right? But reverse racism is when, to me, is when you say something and it could be based on fact. It should be based on fact, right? For it to be reverse racism. And somebody says, "Oh, well, that's racist," right? Whereas somebody else with a different skin color, this is personal, interpersonal racism, right? But this is becoming an institutional thing where people are making it okay to accuse somebody of racism simply because of the color of their skin. Well, you're saying that, but by you saying that, you're racist, even if it is backed up by statistics. However, some statistics are biased, and if you do not talk about them in context, then, like for instance, crime statistics. I don't buy either side's crime statistics, because crime statistics are super biased. It's not usually by being proven guilty in court, it's just being done by accused by a crime. A lot of people ignore per capita, which is the population percentage. Like if you go and you look at the YT people who commit crime, technically it's a 1-to-1 ratio, and that's like what it should be under normal circumstances. Um, if 67% of the population is YT and 67% of crime is committed by YT, that's a 1-to-1 ratio. Um, but in some situations, it's even less. In some situations, YT community is overrepresented, but then you also have to look at crime statistics and understand that being BLK was made a crime at one point, and then because there were laws that were created to unfairly target that community over time, that created the idea that that community itself was criminal. So even after we slowly got rid of the laws that had criminalized this community, the statistics were still there. And then those statistics were used for criminal profiling. And it's very important that we remind ourselves that people are people. You should not be going around and saying, oh, you're this color, and because somebody else this color did this thing, or some community this color did this thing, that you are also a bad person, regardless of color, right? Because the profiling is what's happening. We are projecting onto individuals based off of what a group is. And so now we are seeing hate on both sides. I personally have been in discussion boards with what I would call BLK supremacists who believe that they're superior and that white tea people couldn't do anything on their own and they're inherently bad, right? Which to me is no different than the triple K. It's just a different color triple K. Obviously, the difference is systemic racism, right? Because at the end of the day, our system still is unfair towards people of color. And that's not at all what I'm saying, but I'm saying what is happening right now is critical race theory is being used to essentially reinforce the idea that one person cannot be racist to another person if they don't have power in that system. And that's not true at all. Every individual is capable of discriminating against another individual because of their demographic. That is still racism. If you're discriminating on them because of your perceived idea of race, then you're being racist. You're being interpersonally racist. That's what that is. And because a lot of people are holding this ideology, what it is creating institutional racism. It's creating the idea that BOK people can say really ignorant, hateful things in the same way that there are white T people who say those things, but that it's okay because they're a marginalized group. And if that is allowed to continue, it's going to go in the other direction, potentially.